Welcome to Stand Up for Doctors. I'm your host, Kim Downey. Thank you very much for joining us. I'd like to welcome Shelley Halligan and Daniel Intorella. Thanks for joining us today, Shelley and Dan.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thanks for having us, Kim.
You're very welcome. And by way of a brief introduction, Shelley is the president at Speranza Therapeutics. She's a nurse practitioner, keynote speaker, and subject matter expert in addiction medicine. Dan is a fitness coach for busy executives. He helps men shed the dad bod and build a fit bod. I love that. And he also knows a lot about kidney health from his own experience, which I have a personal interest in as well. And today we'll be talking about Shelley and Dan's personal medical journeys and how during our initial conversation, Dan shared that the key is to recycle your pain into power. And there's a lot to unpack in that sentence, so I thought that would probably be a good place to start. And I also always begin by asking what you'd most like our audience to know about you, and you can include hobbies, whatever you want. Shelley, would you like to go first?
Well, first and foremost, as you said, I'm a person in long-term recovery, but the most depressing thing in my life right now, my daughter is 1 week away from giving birth to my first grandchild, so I'm on baby watch.
Let's
I'm
hope
so
it doesn't happen
blessed
in the
and so
next 40
excited.
minutes.
I know, exactly, but I'm so excited and I feel just just overjoyed with that.
Oh, well, that's super. So probably by the time this is published, you'll have a new grandbaby, and maybe we could share about that.
That's right.
I'd
Yes.
like to. That's super exciting. Dan, what would you like us to know about you?
That my biggest thing to preach on through LinkedIn is taking accountability and taking ownership of your health. Being the CEO of your health and life, because at the end of the day, nobody's coming to save you. I mean, the doctors are great to start off, but
Mhm.
ultimately it comes down to you. You can attest to this, Kim, Shelley can, I can. You have to be your biggest fan and your biggest advocate. So health should be number one priority, is what I try to really push. Number one.
Absolutely.
That's very important, and also for doctors themselves, right?
Yes,
Because
Right.
doctors are patients. We're all patients. So
that's right.
thank you for spotlighting that. So Shelley, would you like to get us started off by sharing a little more about your personal journey and what Dan's sentence means to you as far as recycling your pain into power?
Absolutely. March 22nd of 2023, I had a near fatal accident. I fell into my sister's empty swimming pool in the deep end. My sisters watched as I had this traumatic fall and sustained multiple broken bones. Three of my four extremities were broken, and I was bedbound for 3 months in a hospital bed. I was given very poor news day after day after day. I was in excruciating pain, which I love when Dan said that about turning your pain into power. That's exactly what I did, and recycled that into getting better. And part of the journey was having a great support system to help me have a positive mindset. And I think from the very beginning, that was the most important thing. I had my family around me, the people that love and care about me, my faith, and to be able to say that I'll be able to get through this. And I had some great doctors that helped me through. One in particular that I'll talk about, that his one sentence turned everything around for me, because I really felt I was an athlete. I was very active. And I thought, wow, my whole life has absolutely changed. And I was right, but not the way that I initially thought.
Well, your story is so inspirational. So thank you. This is just the beginning that you're sharing. And Dan, would you like to share a little bit about your journey as well?
Yeah, so my journey with kidney health started when I was 21 years old. I had severe acne growing up, and long story short, when dermatologist saw my lab reports, and he said, if you were my kid, I would have you see your urologist. So that got the whole ball rolling. Ended up going to Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota for about 3, 4 days of rigorous testing after a year of testing up where I'm from. But I'm from a rural area, so I went to Minnesota, came back, congenital chronic kidney disease, and a neurogenic bladder. Um, so that's what I was left with, congenital, so just born with poor kidney health. And so I've been self-catheterizing for 20 years. and seeing my doctor regularly. And last spring, I was placed on the kidney wait list. I'm now inactive because my GFR is still, it's too good or it's not bad enough. So it's a good thing. Still on the list, but it's deemed inactive. But yeah, talking about years and years of leading the lifestyle. And the urologist, before I got put on the kidney wait list, said when he walked into the room without even meeting me, just looking at my paperwork, and he said, "You're better than advertised," because it goes hand in hand, taking care of yourself, living the lifestyle, being healthy, making health a priority, especially if you have a chronic illness. Is primo. I've met with a lot of people who are not as fortunate as I am. So I just live every day being grateful because I know what I've seen. It could be a lot worse. Even if it's cancer or one kidney or being on dialysis. I'm only 42 years old, so being diagnosed 20 years ago and still having 20% kidney function, nobody really knows. But recycling your pain into power, and now it's like a superpower for me, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, thank you for sharing. Your journey is very inspirational as well, and that was a very difficult thing to have to process at such a young age,
Mm.
for sure.
Extremely.
I can really relate to when Dan was talking about being fortunate. One of the things that the doctors told me right from the beginning was that I was in such good health, and that was such a blessing. And I said I was a person in long-term recovery. I'd gotten sober many, many years ago, and things would have been very, very different if that hadn't occurred in my life. And so living every day in gratitude has really, like Dan said, it's a superpower. And to look at, okay, this accident, what happened, and the gratitude I feel. I didn't hit my spine, I didn't hit my hip, I didn't hit my head. The bones and things that were broken. Your body is an amazing organism that can heal and repair itself with the right mindset, with the right nutrition, and with, like Dan said, the aftercare. Your insurance and doctors will only carry you so far. And you've got to have a plan after that. And I think that's really important because, that those things run out. PT runs out, your doctor visits run out, and you're left to kind of your own research and your own, how are you going to get through this? And it takes a lot of motivation. And there's days that you have it, and I give myself a very brief amount of time not to have it. And those days are getting farther and farther apart, and I'm grateful for that. I was told I would be in a wheelchair, and then I was told I would have to have a walking, walker, and then a cane, and today I'm not using anything. So, Kim, I invited you to my dance party when I'm going to have that. So when I get to running and jumping and dancing again, because that's a really big passion of mine. I'm known for dancing in my office, dancing in my kitchen, and not being able to dance and stuff has been quite a change. But I dance in my chair all the time. So
I love that, and we live in the same state, so I will 100% be at your dance
that's
party.
right. Dan will come too, I know.
Yes.
Guaranteed. One thing that you shared during our conversation that I thought was very powerful also was you mentioned that this journey was nothing in comparison to your addiction recovery journey. And for people who don't know, you've had so many surgeries. I mean, it really, for what happened to you, you've had quite a process of recovery. I wondered if you wanted to speak a bit to that.
Sure. Yeah, I did say that. And I think that that's important. Bones heal, certain thing, your body heals. Addiction never goes away. It's one of those things that you have to, it's a chronic disease that you have to keep at bay. And I do what I do to do that on a daily basis. And I'm grateful for that. And again, if I hadn't, stopped drinking and stopped using that as a tool for the pain that I was suffering. And addiction is based in trauma. It just is. And every one of us have had trauma. And we use different things. Some people use food. Some people use gambling. Some people stay on their phone 20 hours a day. Some people work, just extreme amount of time. And some people can go excessively to the gym. I mean, so there's extremes, right? So Mine was alcohol. And fortunately, my family had an intervention and I went to treatment, and I did not go to treatment with any thoughts of actually staying sober. I went because everybody was upset and I just thought I'll get them off my back. But I heard something and my life changed, and it has stayed changed. And I have had zero. And it's when this accident happened, I haven't had one thought of drinking. I haven't had one thought of picking up a drink. And it's the miracle of recovery that can happen in your life. And it's just like any other chronic disease, high blood pressure, high cholesterol. You have to manage it. It's a lifestyle change, and we become the company we keep. And for me, like I said, I have a big spiritual foundation that I believe in. And even with this accident, I had to turn everything over. I had no control. I was very dependent. I couldn't even brush my teeth. I couldn't put my hair in a ponytail. And that's something really funny. My sister and her partner and one of my friends that were staying with me, a nurse, they all had super short hair and they couldn't even put my hair in a ponytail. And we laughed about that, but I was like, oh gosh, at least can I please have my hair done? But you just have to let things go. And we laughed a lot. We cried a lot, but I found the things, and I keep finding the things that I can do. I can swim. I can do a lot of things that I couldn't do before. I can do some body weight exercises. Dan has actually been helpful for showing me stretches and nutrition. He's also helped my husband, which has been incredible. They became fast friends, which I knew they would. Because he's the greatest person ever. And just to be able to count your blessings, I think that's the thing that I have learned out of this. And I've tried very much to be open about all of the things that have happened in my life, because I think on social media, oftentimes people portray everything as perfect. And that is a really unfortunate thing. Life is not perfect. We go through trials and tribulation and lots of pain, and we need to be able to help others to go through that pain.
Well, thank you so much for
Oh,
sharing. So, Dan, if you'd like to speak to anything Shelley said, and you could also share how the two of you connected.
sure. Actually, Shelley, I would like to go back for a second. Like, what was the one thing that changed? You said when you went to that intervention, you heard something that changed everything for you. I'm just was curious.
It's really funny. There was this guy there, and his name was Big John, and he was sober for 3 years. And to me, that was like the most unbelievable thing I had ever heard in my life. And the thing that I heard him say is, "You are a very sick woman, and do you want to get better, or do you want to continue to get worse?" And he said, "It's up to you. You can make a choice right now, today." And he just was so basic, and he was so kind. He wanted nothing from me. And it was the first kind of an interaction that I had had with a male, that it was not an inappropriate conversation. It was a very compassionate man saying to me as a young woman, "You're not well, and it's not your fault." And when I heard that, I had taken for so long that it was my fault, that I was, immoral. I was wrong. I was doing all these things. And he said it's based in trauma. And I had just never heard it put like that. And he carried himself in a way that I wanted to walk. And he said, "If I was you, I would go sit over there with those girls and stop talking to me." And I had never had a man talk to me like that. And so he was showing me recovery in action, and not in just books or a lecture or in a
Right.
meeting. And
Applicable. Applicable.
yes. And so I listened. I listened. And, I tell this poor story too. I was given I go to 12-step meetings. Everyone does different things, but I used my big book of Alcoholics Anonymous as on a tray table on my flight home from rehab, so that I wouldn't drink on the flight home. I was so afraid. But, I listened to everything that that I was told. And, here we are many, many, many years later, and my grandson is never going to see his grandmother drink. My neighbors, my nephews and nieces, they've never seen that person. And when I describe that woman, my friends who've known me for many years, they're like, I can't even imagine who that was. And I barely remember her myself, which is good.
Right. Awesome. Yeah, it's beautiful. How Shelley and I came together is through LinkedIn. A mutual connection of ours put me on her. She's got quite a large following. She put me on her for to follow one day, and my notifications popped up, and I saw. I'm like, what is this? And then I went into it, and then literally just got a lot of people who engaged and followed, and Shelley was one of those people, and we just clicked and connected from like Tree. It was just pretty, some things you can't explain. It's just energy, it's vibe,
Mm.
and we just built a relationship from there. And then, like I said, she had said, I've worked with her husband, got him on the right track, and everybody has goals in their life. Like what's important to John may not be as important to Ken, may not be important to Sally. Everybody has their unique goals and what they want to do and accomplish. And he's had a life-changing result. He wanted to focus on some mobility and stretching, which a lot of people, I think stretching is becoming important now, but a lot of people just think of weights, sets and reps, and strength resistance training, and not focus on like the pre and the post part
Mhm.
of it, which is the stretching and dynamically getting your muscles ready, and then bringing your muscles back down to recovery. And he had great results. And that's how Shelley and I connected through LinkedIn. Um, and it's been a great relationship. And just the amount of people you can meet just by putting yourself out there, like Shelley said, nothing is perfect. Showing up day in, day out consistently, and that may not be necessarily posting, but engaging and building rapport, building relationships. Um, a lot of people on LinkedIn would say that it's a business platform, but in business is personal because it's all about building relationships, all about in those relationships turning into friendships, and you never know what one road is going to lead to. So that's really the beautiful thing, and not going into it transactionally, but relationally. Having relationships over transactions because money's going to come and go, but building relationships is what is going to keep you. It's going to sustain, and that really enriches your life. To my degree, and I always say one of my mottos. I have like a lot of mottos that I put out there, but it's always personal first, training second. It's all about just human connection. You know, just I think Shelley can attest to. We both love people. Like
Yes.
I could talk to a tree. I got that gift from my father. Um, so it's just a matter of just being personal, being a human. Human first. It's all about personal first, training second in my book, and then we see what we can do. You know,
And Dan, for me, I always say good attracts good, and we
totally.
just absolutely, and Dan has helped, he has sent me his patients that have had some issues with alcohol, and I've been able to help them, and vice versa. When you find someone who is authentic, as Daniel is, and loving and kind and compassionate, and a real authentic man, that has been something that I cherish, and I cherish our friendship and our personal and friend and professional relationship. I can't say enough things about that. And for me, I view food as medicine. I don't take any medications. I do my best to treat everything with naturally, and I try to promote that as much as possible. And if I don't know something, I'll reach out and ask what I should do and how I should do it. But when I said I had one doctor that had one line that changed my life. I think it's important for me to highlight Dr. TK, who is an orthopedic surgeon here in Niantic, Connecticut. And this man did several surgeries on my wrist, which was significantly injured, and wasn't sure how much use I was going to have on my left hand. I am right-handed, but you'll be surprised even when you lose your non-dominant hand, it affects everything. But all the doctors from the emergency room to when I went into rehab, post rehab, because I fell when I was in Florida and I live in Connecticut. So I had to stay in Florida for 3 months. Blessed that my sister turned one of her side bedrooms into a hospital room for me. Blessed that one of my nurses that I've known for years came and took care of me. But all the doctors just gave me really poor prognosis, and their words the thing that I have come out of this with is how powerful our words are in healthcare, how powerful they can be. And what every one of them said, this is a life-changing injury. This is a life-changing injury. And it was so doom and gloom. And that just perpetuated my fear. And it really didn't give me a lot of enthusiasm. I mean, I'll tell you right from the beginning, I was doing leg lifts in the hospital room. I was doing one-arm push-ups. I mean, I was doing, the nurses were freaking out, but I was like, I am not going to be one of these people that are just bedbound, you know. And my physical therapist in the hospital, this man who if there's two of them, an anesthesiologist and a physical therapist who were just amazing. But when I came back to Connecticut, Dr. TK, I was in the wheelchair still, and I went in and he was going to look to do the surgery on my wrist. And he looked at me and he said, Shelley, this is going to be a story that you tell. This is not going to be your life. And that one sentence completely changed everything for me. And I have written to him. I sent him cookies. I tell all the nurses, and they're like, he's got such a big ego. And I said, well, he's earned it. But that statement, and he said it so genuinely to me, and he put his hand on my shoulder and he said, you're a warrior. You're going to get through this. You're going to come in here and you're going to be just fine. And I took that. I took that as gospel. And I tell you, I just said that was a turning point for me. I started doing every single thing I could possibly do, knowing that things, I would overdo it for sure. But I did everything I could possibly do, from food to prayer to meditation to surrounding myself with people who were my cheerleaders. And that was why I went public on LinkedIn, just to say, I need support. And man, it was great. It was great.
I remember those videos. He was right. You were on your bike. You were like,
yep,
bicep curling. You were like every day. Like you were like, motivation times 10.
And it helped a lot of people. That's why I say it's important to be truthful when we're sharing on social media about where we're at, whether it be hard times, rough times, I'm not doing well, I'm having one of those days, or the opposite, when it's like, look what I can do. So I think that that's been really important for me, is just to share the real story of when you have a traumatic injury. And it could have been so much worse, and now I'm able to talk to people about, especially in recovery, that you can get through this sober. You can get through anything without returning to something that you used to use as a crutch or as to treat yourself with unhealthfully. I was very cautious of any medications that I was on. Of course, I had to be, but happy to say that, all of that is behind me, and treating myself as much as I can with lots of food and lots of positive things.
Well, that's wonderful. And a few things that you've both shared, because as you know, I have largely a physician audience. So here's a shout out again to Dr. TK. Are those initials, or is that his name?
It's just their initials. That's what he goes by. He has quite a difficult last name to pronounce, and everybody knows who he is. But he is absolutely wonderful, and I would trust him with anyone. I recommend patients to go to him all the time. He specializes in wrist and hands. And yeah, the last time I saw him, he was like, I'm discharging you, lady. You're all set, and that was a great thing to hear, because, he said, you may be back. I don't know. He said, you're a powerhouse. So I don't have any plans to have any other surgeries. There's a few things that are going on with my left ankle. That was a crushing injury. So I have a lot of vascular problems in my foot. I don't have feeling in my toes and in the left side of my foot. And both Achilles tendons are hanging on by a thread. So there's some pain associated with that, but you rest and, recuperate and isolate and limit what you do.
Yeah, well, here's another shout out to Dr. TK. Thank you. And a few things that you both shared. Shelley, you shared how, everyone has experienced trauma. And in my conversations with physicians, there's not a physician that has gotten through their medical training without trauma. Sometimes they don't identify it as such, but
Mhm.
sometimes acknowledging it can be the first step to healing. And also, as you shared during your addiction recovery, going to those 12-step programs, or that you still participate as a healthcare professional, being willing to be vulnerable yourself and show up as Shelley. Not
That's
that I'm
right.
a doctor of nursing, practice,
Exactly.
right? And I'm this medical professional, that these are human any problem that people have, your doctors have them too, right?
That's exactly right. And I advocate strongly for physicians, nurse practitioners, social workers, nurses, CNAs, anyone with a problem, because addiction does not discriminate, And so, as the medical professional providers, we see trauma every day. I work in addiction medicine, and I've had in the last 3 weeks, I've lost 3 patients, one to suicide and two to overdose. And it stays with you. It doesn't leave you. And so, you have to take care of yourself. And, doctors have, I think, the most limited resources, and they are judged for asking for help. They're judged for coming out to say that they're in recovery. And I know hundreds, and it's almost, we have to meet in this secret society. And it's really unfortunate that we've put addiction in a box with so much stigma and shame, because it kills people. That's why I love working for Speranza Therapeutics, because we really understand it. We promote a lot of natural ways to treat addiction and get people off of drugs naturally, so that people can have a life free of medication, and if that's their journey.
Mhm.
So I think that we have to acknowledge that our physicians work so hard, and we need them, and we need them healthy. And
Mhm.
oftentimes when they need help, we need to be there for them, because they're there for us all the time.
Absolutely. That's so important. And I'm an ambassador for the Dr. Lorna Breen Heroes Foundation, and a lot of their work is reducing stigmatizing questions and making it safe for healthcare workers, of course, physicians included, to seek help. So thank
Absolutely.
you so much for spotlighting that. And a couple of things that you shared, Dan, was even important of taking care of yourself physically, right? You're talking about the stretching and all that. And doctors work long days, right? And sometimes they might not feel that they have time to work out. So just share if you want to speak a little to, something is better than, nothing. And just because you can't go to the gym for 2 hours doesn't mean, right, that you shouldn't try it all, and how
Right.
important it is for doctors to keep up their physical health.
Yeah, and you should not be in a gym for 2 hours, even if you are a power lifter. Most of my workouts I design are 30 minutes. I mean, you can if your workouts are effective, engaging, and efficient, you can knock a workout out and literally hit everything in 30 minutes. Some of the workouts maybe 35, but give or take. And then there's active recovery days. So every day isn't about, in my world, chest and back, triceps, biceps, leg day. It's active recovery. So some days are just merely stretching, 15 minutes. What I also do, I have a lot of clients that travel. Half the month they're traveling. They might be in a hotel gym. So
Hmm.
they'll literally send me what they have there, and I can put everything together. But there's also micro exercises. So people that work at the desk all day, or you're charting your Zoom calls one after the other, literally writing down a simple post-it. 2 p.m. Get up and move. 3:30. Get up and move. After the Zoom call, get up and move. Same thing for water. Water is the elixir of life. Water is distributing nutrients, minerals, blood, oxygen throughout your entire body. And movement helps circulate all that. So sitting and standing is like the worst thing you can do for your body. My mom's a nurse. My sister's a nurse. They do charting for, sometimes 2 hours. They're on their feet a lot. They're bending over the bed. So functional fitness, holistic approach, reminding yourself of those little times until it becomes embedded where it becomes a habit. You may not need the post-its everywhere. Hey, drink your water bottle. Like little subtle hints, like leave the water bottle in the most visited room of either your office or at your house if you work
Hmm.
from home. Just those little subtle cues. But getting up and maybe getting outside, fresh air, oxygen, vitamin D from the sun. super important to boost. And then you're not going to be also looking for those snack foods. Just trying to get it more natural and upping your protein. So there's many little things. Sometimes it's just subtle shift. If you have a refrigerator, bring some Greek yogurt. You know, you can have protein sticks.
Hmm.
There's many little tidbits you can do to try to offset the crash. And then I said, getting up and moving your body is key. And it doesn't have to be an hour and a half in the gym, or if you work out at home, it's just about having a game plan and having that, structure, and then repeating a lot of the mundane things throughout the day. That's a lot of it, what it is. Building healthy habits, but like repeating it day after day after day. Showing every 24 hours, just repeat the process. Found those foundational tools.
Well,
And
thank you. It sounds like
my
you'd have a lot of practical tips for our physician audience, so we'll be sure
Mhm.
to share links as to how our listeners can get in touch with you. And as we're starting to wind down, Shelley, if there's anything you would like to speak to what Dan said, or if you want to touch on something, other things, we've shared and discussed, the three of us in our conversation had to do with faith, a positive mindset, and having a great support system. If you had any takeaways you'd like to share about any of those things.
Yeah, just one thing about Dan is that different than a lot of trainers or health and wellness coaches that you see out there, he was available to my husband 24 hours a day. He travels sometimes 30 days out of the month. So he's in a hotel room. He's locked in an arena with picked food that he can't necessarily take. And Dan was there for him every single day. And I just think that shows to me such a person of integrity. I'm that way with my patients. I don't know that they may not be in trouble Monday through Friday from 8 to 4. It may be Sunday at 6 o'clock in the morning or Saturday night at 9 o'clock at night. And that's the thing that I think a lot of individuals don't know about healthcare providers, doctors, nurse practitioners, that, we're responsible for our patients. And that leads to burnout, and that leads to the trauma that we experience and we can't process because we're just on to the next, on to the next. But something that my mother taught me and is so true, we become the company we keep. And it's very important to pick your company wisely. So individuals that are focused on health, even if they're not absolutely attained that, but that they are searching for that and seeking that in all areas of their life. And I love that Dan, I don't go to a gym. I do body weight exercises. I do things in my home. For me, it's easier and more cost effective. Everyone can't afford a large gym membership in this economy. There's individuals that can't afford to feed their family. So what Dan offers are things that anyone can do. And I do the same thing. When my patients come to me, it's not about what prescription necessarily that I'm prescribing for them, but it's going to be, what are you eating? What are you doing? Are you getting out in nature? Are you having good conversations? What are your relationships like? So it's a functional medicine approach that we look at the whole person because it's rooted in so many different areas. So for me, especially with the healthcare community, who I love treating, like I said, that is a passion of mine. Individuals who've lost their license. When you lose your license, you lose your livelihood, and the chances of someone recovering from that decreases greatly. So I want to do everything in my power to help that person and treat them with dignity, respect, and a non-judgmental attitude. I explain to people, if you tell someone, your provider, whomever, and you start off by saying, I'm drinking 28 beers a day, and their response is, are you kidding me? Or, why are you doing this? Then the conversation's going to end. They're not going to tell you anything else. But if you say, tell me more, and be empathetic, that is the one thing that I can tell you that Dr. TK, they were so empathetic with me and so kind and so compassionate that we need to bring compassion back into medicine and healthcare. Healthcare meaning, let's get to the root of the problem and let's treat it naturally as possible as we can. If we can treat that trauma, then we have a really strong chance of a person recovering from whatever it is. So my fall wasn't only broken bones and a lot of physical therapy. It was I relived that fall 8,000 times in my head, and I had nightmares, and it was a horrific PTSD, which I also dealt with naturally. So there are ways to be able to do that, and I feel very blessed and honored to be able to do that. And I would love to work with any physician out there who is in need. I'm always available.
Well, thank you so much, Shelley. So in 60 seconds or less, Dan, do you have any bottom line tips or takeaways for our audience?
A couple things. Well, two doctors profound in my life in the nephrology world were Dr. Saldarini and Dr. Jeffrey Goodman, both in New Jersey. Saldarini was my first, but then he left for a while. So I went with Dr. Goodman, I shifted to, and I've been with him since, and absolutely top-notch doctors. Amazing. I see Dr. Goodman every 3 months. But on that note too, and like I said, Shelley attested to, she reached out to one of my clients and she had to send her daughter away for treatment. So Shelley was more than willing to put herself out there and like just talk at a human level. Would I have 20 seconds left? But I said, like literally, movement is life. We just mentioned, we joked a little bit earlier, but something is greater than zero. If you can do 2 minutes, it sounds cliche, 2 minutes, 3 minutes of stretching. It may not sound like nothing, but those little insurmountable, those little habits that you're stacking every day, the ROI is huge. When you do a little bit every day, you don't see it happening. That's where the magic is happening. You see the end results. People give up and quit too easily because they want the muscle, but muscle is expensive real estate to build. It's not fat. It's lean and dense, and muscle is life because muscle is energy. The more muscle you carry, the more fat you burn. And you want to be strong as you age in your 40s, your 50s, and your 60s. So
I got to pick up that grandbaby.
Yeah, exactly.
You gotta,
Well, best wishes. We can't wait to hear about that.
Yes. And muscle is linked to longevity. So I think that, Dan
yes,
is right on. Flexibility and muscle is linked to longevity and a healthy life.
Absolutely. So I will have you both send me the links that you want me to share on YouTube and on our LinkedIn post. And here's a quick shout to LinkedIn because that's how Dan connected with Shelley. Shelley connected with me, and then Shelley connected me with Dan, and we're all here today. So here's to LinkedIn and real relationships.
LinkedIn is life changing.
It really is.
It
It really is. And a shout out to you, Kim, for the work that you do. I think that doctors, nurse practitioners, nurses, all of us, we need a voice. We need people that appreciate the work that we do and stand up for us. So God bless you for that. Really, I really am grateful to you.
Well, thank you very much. So in closing, to move the needle in healthcare, we all need to raise our voices and we all need to care about each other. We already know that doctors need to care about patients. Patients need to care about doctors too. So stand up, doctors, and let's stand up for doctors.
That's right. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
Thanks, Kim.
You're very welcome.